Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. It is the 20th here. Sorry, I'm a little behind, just a few minutes behind from usual, but excuse me, man. I don't know. I was a little dehydrated when I woke up, and that's my problem. Anyways, we had a pretty significant move yesterday. Some pretty significant fundamental change. I made a video about it yesterday. If you haven't seen that already, I would go take a look at that. But we will recap. Excuse me. Am I done? All right. So let's recap a little bit of that. So we can start with the E-mini. So yesterday, pretty significant drop off here from the all-time highs, and in the overnight session, extending that move and going below many levels of the, so not only are we below this week's open, but they were trading for a moment below the previous week's open. Yeah, that bad. Now the month open is like way down there below 3,300. So 32.72. And we're at 33.60 basically. Yeah. So a long way down before you get the next wave of people to switch around. But yeah, this was a significant move. Now I'm just kind of was trying to read the sentiment and everything. I didn't see a whole lot of change over the overnight. Like the fundamentals, foreign markets kind of took things similarly, but retail traders they're all just take it for granted that this is just gonna like bounce and move, and we'll be back at the highs by the end of the day, which based on the fundamental change that many large market participants had yesterday, as indicated by their action, is a little crazy, but it's still possible. All right, so let's just keep that out there, that there's still a wide range of possibilities here. And to put that in perspective, the treasuries, even though they sold off pretty hard yesterday off of that news, are now higher. They are now up at 139.19. So maybe that makes for a good short, but I guess the thing is that the monetary accommodation doesn't necessarily have to move us outside of this range. Although I am starting to wonder if maybe we should be more in this range rather than in this range. So we'll see how that one goes. Also, we should point out, like, literally everything was down. So here's oil is a little bit lower. I think that needs to switch soon. No, we're on October. I'm surprised that oil is not down more, but they are down a little bit. Just a little bit. Gold took a real beating. So I think that the fundamentals of that move were not really favorable to gold. Even though it's kind of like there's no flight to safety. That's the crazy thing. And then we got the currencies. You can see the dollar index significantly stronger, pushing the 93 area. We'll see where that goes. Now, we've got some important numbers coming up. Jobless claims and the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index. So, here in about 30 seconds. That's why I'm like, oh, I'm late. No, I think we're good. We're good. Good. We loved the WTF upload yesterday. Yeah. I thought I would try that thumbnail, and I think it worked out pretty well for us. Okay, here we go. Number maybe a little bit late here. $30 late. My. It's usually not a good thing. Okay, so slightly higher than expected. So the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index was 17.2 versus an estimated 21. And the initial jobless claims was back over a million at 1,106,000 versus the estimate of 925,000. So that's not like a significant difference necessarily in percentage wise, but because we're talking about such high numbers, it is disappointing. Now, continuing jobless claims was slightly lower than expectations, 14,844,000 versus 15 million, essentially. So with that, with the continuing jobless claims being higher, that does kind of make it a mix, because that continuing jobless claims is just as important. And I don't know if the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index is like a huge deal. Let's read this stuff.
Winston's mom says the 10-year note yield fell 1.9 basis points to 0.656%, while the 2-year note rate edged 0.6 basis point down to 0.135%. The 30-year bond yield slipped 2.8 basis points to 1.387%. Winston's mom says yields move in the opposite direction of bond prices. MarketWatch posted August 20, 2020 at 8:16 a.m.
I love
Eastern
how
Time.
they always have to put that note in there,
Anna
because that's the
Carolina
thing that
Fuchs
people
says
don't
see
know.
you, see you, see you.
Okay, well. The problem is we're like, we were kind of balanced before this news. Maybe leaning towards the short side. The market doesn't seem to be reacting to this news super strongly. Now part of that might be that it just didn't like go like right when it was supposed to. Some of the algorithms might be a little confused. I think though that I still want to be short here. Yeah. The market are pointing out lots of talk about yield curve control, but very little change has been occurring. U.S. Treasury's active curve has not changed much over the past month. It's true. So the thing that's really interesting about this news yesterday, I haven't been watching the convention at all. The thing that's interesting about the news from the FOMC is that, uh, like, it surprised the market. But I think that a lot of the guys that have really been watching the Federal Reserve knew that they were skeptical of yield curve control, for instance. This question's been asked, and they kind of, like it was asked at the press conference, right? And he said, "Well, we're not so sure that yield curve control is really that effective." So I don't know. You've kind of got a situation. I have to admit, when that meeting minutes came out and they started selling like that, I was quite surprised. And I actually took counter trade, and I made money on the counter trade. So this is where it's like, I know that this kind of a situation can lead to a lot of knockoff effects, and it can continue, because it is very, very important fundamental data. But I also know that, I don't know. Like, the thing is like, what has changed from yesterday to today? I don't think that it's that different other than just people's perceptions of what has changed, right? So it's really more like now people are coming back to reality where they should have been last month, and how much is going to come out because of that. I don't know. But I would say that the economic data that we just got was not very good. Wasn't a disaster, but it was not very good. And will probably decline a bit. Also, we need to remember that we still have a bunch of like uh, 8-week, 4-week bill auctions. So still some auctions today. I think that we get kind of like the Treasury refunding like a report here. Let's see here. What do they call it? No, it doesn't tell me what it is. There is like a report at the end of all of this. So treasuries probably start to behave a little differently after tomorrow. That said, it's surprising. Well, maybe it's not surprising. Maybe it's that, okay, they saw the Federal Reserve action and so they sold the treasuries off of that. But now they're buying it back up because people are scared. I don't know. Anyways, convention. I haven't watched the convention. Wasn't last night the last night? I'm told that not a lot of people are watching it. Over 1 million Americans filed for jobless benefits last week, says Zero Hedge. Yes. It's a little crazy to think that we were expecting 925,000 people to file for new unemployment claims, and that's not like a huge deal. You know what I mean? Like, what the heck? It's crazy. Now they're telling me, oh, they're correcting the Canadian. So Canadian ADP non-farm employment change actual 1,149K, previous 1,042. Hmm. ECB signals September to be key month to read the economy. Yeah, it's just like the Federal Reserve is doing. That's a little disconcerting. IG Squawk says, surely we'll have a markets in turmoil special. Hans NBC? Maybe. Okay. Well, pretty quiet now. Wondering, well, for them to get below 33.56 now would probably take a little bit of oomph, you know? The 1.11 million print is well above consensus expectation of 920,000. It exceeded all of the 40 estimates in the market survey. 14.8 million continuing claims were better than expected. I don't know if the continuing claims being low is really a good thing. That makes sense. Because that might be that people that would like to. I don't know. I could be wrong. Do you have a link for what? the reports? I'm just reading it on Twitter.
Winston's mom says I really liked the way they did the state's roll call. The guy who had the calamari was hilarious. I don't which states lays claim to calamari, but the roll call allowed us to see and hear each state.
I don't know. Sounds kind of boring to me. I don't know. Conventions usually are really boring, right? It's usually the play of the speeches afterwards that is more significant. Interestingly enough, though, I haven't really been seeing anything about that on any kind of mainstream news. Like even the big political blogs are kind of like meh. Will it be the same with the Republican convention? I think it might be. There's a lot of other things going on during the Republican convention that are like might steal their thunder. But it doesn't seem like the Democrats are getting a whole lot of bang for theirs either. So I don't know. I was reading the headlines this morning and it sounded like Obama went after Donald Trump really hard. I have to see what he said later. Everything else, it's really the political news has been so weird lately, man. Like, what was the story yesterday? Oh yes, way more interesting. Yesterday, Donald Trump had a press conference, and in the press conference, a reporter asked him about the Q conspiracy theory or the Q movement, and he was like, "Well, I don't know a whole lot about it other than that they really like me." And she was like, "Well, this movement believes that you are battling pedophiles and Satanists and so forth." And, and he was like, "Well, is it supposed to be a bad thing that I'm fighting pedophiles and devil worshippers?" It was like possibly one of the best answers to a press question of his presidency. No joke. And people were so upset about it yesterday. That's what they were talking about yesterday, which is kind of like a meh. Meh.
Winston's mom says the Goodyear story and the Q story. Yes, he was on a roll yesterday.
Yeah, it was. The Goodyear thing was interesting because Goodyear is saying, "Oh no, that's not the case." Okay. I got to tell you what though, any company is going to think twice now before they say, "Oh, you can't wear a Make America Great Again hat at work," because you don't want to be in those crosshairs, do you? Personally, I wouldn't want my employees wearing political attire like that at work, though. It's just going to cause problems. But banning it would be worse. You don't want to infringe on people's freedom of expression, I guess you can say. Inside bar there. Yeah, so the thing about the Q story, here's the takeaway that you should take from that. Because I saw this story. Jeb Bush was like, "Oh, it's absolutely horrible that he would say that." What? Like, why? What? I mean, let's make it clear. The Q, the whole Q drop thing, it's a LARP. It's not real. They were faking it. All of that stuff it's a person that knows a lot about what's going on and put a lot of truthful stuff in there. But the whole thing that like they're there with the president and it's all nonsense. None of this stuff that they said was going to happen is happening. Okay. So they're not in line with what reality, right? But is it like this absolutely horrid evil thing? No. I mean, people believe in conspiracy theories. You can't stop them. Hold on. And the media is acting like this is this horrible thing. Now, I think one thing is that they're trying to conflate the Q LARP with racism, which there's like no connection there. But I do see that they're trying to make that connection. But Jeb Bush was like, "Oh, it's horrifying," and I'm like, Jeb, this is why you lost, and that's the takeaway that I would take from it. Like this is the fundamental conundrum of politics in a democracy. Like, have you ever seen what was Julius Caesar, the Shakespeare play, right? And Mark Antony gets up in front of the people and he gives that good speech, friends, Romans, countrymen. Like, that's the whole thing, is sometimes you have to talk up to the crowd, and the person that can play to the crowd can be really successful with it. And then you kind of have to just hope that it doesn't flip back around and screw you over. You know, it's that's the way that the game works. And all these people trying to say, "Oh, well, that's shouldn't be saying that. That's absolutely horrid." You don't know how to play the political game. Either that, or you're trying to, or you're intentionally trying to implant an idea that you know is false in people's heads. Because why should the president come out and make a strong condemnation against his most uh, enthusiastic supporters because they don't like pedophiles? Like, really? That makes absolutely no strategic sense. It's just like this, a lot of this stuff with the post office. I mean, I'm sure that there are some arguments in there that are legitimate, but a lot of this stuff that, like, oh, they're removing post office boxes and all this stuff to influence the election, and it's just standard stuff that the post office is always doing, is they'll replace old boxes and then do this and that. It's just crazy. Uh, it's not. I don't want to call it crazy, but it's a hysteria. There's a lot of stuff going around on Twitter that is basically like misinformation. Is the Democrat Party going to come in and condemn that stuff? No, they play to it. Their followers, that your followers are going with it. It's something you can use to increase enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. You go with it and hope that something bad doesn't happen. Screw you over later. Yeah, there it is. Jeb Bush's specific comment was, "Nut jobs, racist haters have no place in either party." Well, maybe some guys in Qs are nut jobs, but they're not necessarily racists or haters. There's no connection there. So, Jeb, this is why you went nowhere. This is why you went nowhere.
IT
Now
Ant
this is
Great
an
says I
interesting one.
dunno, QAnon folk happen to overlap with Jewish conspiracists.
So it seems to me, particularly, so I think that the place that I saw it the most was in the subreddit Cringe Anarchy. There's a subreddit called Cringe Anarchy, and at first it was just making fun of the left, and I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was a great sub. But over time, it seems to me that the moderators just kind of like didn't care or weren't paying attention. And all of a sudden, I was seeing anti Semitism everywhere. It's like they were constantly posting pictures of, oh, look, this far left protester guy that's claiming that they're white is actually Jewish. And I found that really abhorrent, very abhorrent. Um, and it just like took over that sub. But when I started looking down into it, it was like this small group of posters that had taken over. So that's why I think on like the Donald website, you don't really see this a whole lot, because anytime that they kind of stick their heads up, the moderators come down and just destroy them. I've had a number of instances where I've gone and I've commented on stuff like that, like anti-Semitism isn't allowed here, and everybody will be like, "No, you're just being a cuck," or something like that. But then the admins do come in and delete it. So I think that there is a small group of anti-Semitists that are trying to like hijack other movements. But there's nothing about the QAnon thing that is inherently anti-Semitist, and I'm sure that anti-Semitism is a very small minority of the QAnon people. You know what I mean? Now, off of the hills of that, Rudy Giuliani was posting something yesterday that I was like, what the heck? Because he was saying tomorrow we'll release information that's really important to maintaining the republic or something like that. Did you guys see that one? Let me go find that. Let's see if that's still up there, because I was like, what the hell? Here it is, right here. Here's the tweet. Oh, maybe somebody else was. Okay, he just said tomorrow we expose information that is vital to protect the proper functioning of our republic. Somebody was posting something else, that there was like a drop from the FBI archives or something that was related to a now discredited document about globalist Jews or something like that. So I think that they put that in there. Had nothing to do with Giuliani, but like that sort of stuff is definitely floating around. I definitely see it. It's kind of hard to really say conclusively how pervasive it is, huh? It bothers me though. And let's remember that it's not just the right. The right is not the only one with problems with anti-Semitism. In fact, before all this, well, I take that back. Like the neo-Nazi guys, they always had problems with Jews, huh? But I've always found that it was more the people on the left that were pushing that stuff. There's no coincidence that a couple of the shootings against synagogues and stuff have been leftist shooters. Has been. There's some very serious anti-Semitism on the left. The difference, I think, with the left is that the anti-Semitism can play into some of their actual policy because they don't really like Israel, and they don't support Israel's side in the Palestinian conflict. You know what I mean? So the anti-Semitism kind of comes from there. But it's also a different kind of anti-Semitism, right? You get the anti-Semitism from Muslims instead of from Nazis, I guess.
Winston's mom says I saw Rudy say he had to buy another suitcase to bring all of the evidence he found in Ukraine. Rudy, someone needs to place him in a nice nursing home with soft slippers, pretty nurses.
I was watching, there's this really interesting documentary on Netflix where they basically talk about how they took down the mob. I did not realize how big of a role he played in taking down the mob. And all of a sudden it was like it made sense to me. Oh, he really is like, he was like the GOP star from New York. And it makes perfect sense that he was able to have such a successful political career there, and that he was able to accomplish so much there, and that so many people from New York actually hate him because he was a politician that was successful. I kind of wonder, maybe he would have been a better political, like a better president than I thought. Because I remember when he was running, I didn't really like him. I was like, you're just trying to run off of, all this other stuff. You're just trying to run off of 9/11. Maybe his strategy overall wasn't very effective, but yeah, I gained a newfound respect for him after watching that documentary. It was really interesting because basically the whole thing was that they were going after the mob for like crimes, like murder, for instance, and it was always like you would take out one of the small guys, but it didn't destroy the mob. But they had created the RICO statute to be able to take out organized crime. And I guess the reality was that the FBI and the police didn't know how to use it. So they basically had to go to a weekend conference where this lawyer basically explained to them how to use it and everything. And so they all came back and were like completely changed everything. And we're like, okay, we're going to create a team to go after each mob group, and we're going to collect evidence. And then instead of going, like if somebody was murdered and then they would go after the crime, they just sat there and did nothing and just let the mob do their thing and record everything. And so they had like months and months of these mobsters talking about their crime family. Was crazy. And then there was a big murder, and it was a murder that they knew. And so this is another thing I didn't realize, is there was like 4 major crime families, but the major crime families would come together on a regular basis and discuss business. And so they were basically able to show that a hit like this, because it was against a high level mobster, had to be approved by the commission. And that's how they took them down. It's so crazy. It was a I mean, it was only like a 4 episode thing on Netflix, and I guess it wasn't like that well done, but I found it so interesting.
Winston's mom says Rudy was a good mayor. We flew in and out of
Oh yeah.
Manhattan to see the shows open, and I saw vast improvements happen in Midtown, the entire city. I saw it in the 70s when it was so dirty.
Mm. When I was in New York, like when I was there, 2010. Oh, I loved to go. Every time that I would go to New York, that the Freedom Tower, I guess they call it now, was at a different stage of development, and I basically got to watch them put it up. I haven't been back there since it's finished. I really want to go. Um, After this pandemic is over and maybe we get go on a vacation, I'll want to go to New York. But it's also like there's all this stuff happening. It sounds like that it's completely changed. Like it's kind of scary to me. Because yeah, when I was in New York, I felt like a theme park to me. I felt like I was at Disneyland. There was always cops. Everything was like super safe and what built to handle, a lot of people being around. It felt like a theme park. And now I'm seeing all these videos of like just complete anarchy. It's like just so sad. And the fact that like they're saying that something like 40% of people are moving out, some extreme number like that. I'm finding that what's happening is like the boss, he already has a summer home, right? So he moves, so everything goes remote because of COVID. And then the boss goes to live in his summer home. And he's like, you know what? I'm getting just as much work done here at my summer home. We should just keep doing this. So because the boss is doing it now, everybody does it. And the people that would be opposed would be those mid-level managers, that don't really actually do anything. And they just become, nobody cares about them. What I'm finding at my place is that some of those uh, that mid level management now, it's becoming very much an issue of like uh, managing people around which issues to tackle and how to tackle them, and really hard things. And so they're his like my boss, his job has just gotten so much harder. And I feel really bad for him because he does a pretty good job, but the team has kind of run into a couple of problems and stuff like that. Just with the technology that we've been working with, it's not anybody's fault or anything. And his job is so much harder now, remote. But what are you gonna do? And it seems like it's not gonna go back.
Winston's mom says I went to Manhattan 1 month after 9/11 when the city was still smoking. We were there when they closed down Rockefeller Center because of an anthrax scare. People looked
Oh,
simply
really?
stunned.
Yeah, my sister, she went there. She started school there that fall. Yeah. We're like, I remember my dad freaking out, like, I'm letting my daughter live in New York alone, and there was just a big terrorist attack. Hmm. So this market has been rotating around 33.59 or so for the last 30 minutes. Hasn't really gone anywhere. I mean, we did see 8 ticks on this side and 8 ticks on this side, but actually it's really more like 10 ticks. Then right back in the middle. It's really tight for not only the E-mini, but this situation. And I should note that um The higher than expected initial jobless claims does not seem to be impacting the market as uh, significantly as I would have expected. So it's just kind of dead.
Winston's mom says, doubtless, the life of an irregular is hard, but the interests of the greater number require that it shall be hard. Edwin Abbott, Flatland, A Romance of Many Dimensions. Flatland or Bust.
Hmm. Sentiment trader being retweeted by FX Macro saying gamma exposure is at its highest level ever. The previous record was in January 2020, a month before stocks collapsed in the fastest bear market ever. Interesting.
Winston's mom says 18 watching now. Please hit the like button for Speculators' channel and or if you have read, Flatland, the story of our new normal.
It's so I remember when we had that quad witching, there was a lot of gamma exposure, and it was like, well, things are going to be very different now going into the summer because all of that gamma is coming off. And now we're finding out that there's a lot of gammas back on. That's very curious to me. But it almost certainly must be the result of a lot of retail traders trading options, huh? What the heck is wrong with this? That's fine. I was looking at it. It didn't look right. There's a little spring on the end of the cord. It didn't look right. Yeah. Just looking at the pre-market action in futures trading, it doesn't look like that worse than expected jobless claims number changed the market narrative. Yeah, but there's something else is going on because it's unusually tight. Respond to that tweet there. It's just so tight. Amazon and Microsoft are running away from Google in the cloud space. Oh yeah, totally. Listen, I wouldn't use Google's if I was making a web application and I felt the need to have cloud computing for it. I would use Amazon or Microsoft. I wouldn't do the Google Cloud. Their setup is so freaking. I have to use Google Cloud for the text to speech. It's such a pain in the ass. I shouldn't use that kind of language. It sucks. Chinese Foreign Ministry said there is no cause for concern toward the nuclear energy cooperation between China and Saudi Arabia. Okay. Let's just give everybody nuclear weapons, guys. Bad idea. Okay, I am detecting some dollar strength now in these past 5 minutes. Okay, this might be turning. Got fingers crossed in U.S. in self-sustaining recovery. Okay, I'm seeing the dollar strength coming in. The euro is moving down. If the euro comes down to like these lows at 1.182, then and that could trigger a more significant move down in the euro. That would be very concerning indeed. And I think tactically speaking, if you were going to be making it a bearish move today, you would want to do it there first.
Winston's mom says bored panda dad jokes. Did you hear the news? FedEx and UPS are merging. They're going to go by the name Fed Up from now on.
Oh, that's a great one. Oh my gosh. I'm going to steal that if people come in later and they're, we need a joke. That is great. Where did you get that one from? I'm surprised I haven't heard that one before. They're going to go by the name Fed Up now. Anyways, I think you want to do the move over in the currencies first where the equity traders aren't paying attention.
Winston's mom says, I ordered a chicken and an egg from Amazon. I'll let you know.
You can buy chickens on Amazon? What? Like live chickens?
Winston's mom says bored panda dad joke. When a woman is giving birth, she is literally kidding.
Okay, now they are at the low, at least since we've been watching. Touching it, but oh, okay. So they that's funny. Oh my gosh. Did you guys see that? As soon as they traded one tick below that low, the micro futures had a stop run of 2 ticks beyond that. And the E-mini just didn't do anything. So there you go. Bunch of retail traders with stops at the last pivot. Advisor Kudlow, right now, the stimulus talks are rather stalled. You know, when the markets were going down yesterday, Kudlow was on TV, and now he's on TV here again before the markets open. Why is it that anytime that we get even a little bit of downside, that there are members of the administration out there trying to hold the line? You can't even have like a little down day? Find that disturbing to me. Am I wrong? I think what happened yesterday, you should be concerned about what kind of knockoff effects can happen. I was Financial Juice, by the way. If you guys haven't checked out that deal with Financial Juice where you can get their service for life for $700 right now, look into it because I've been very happy with. I mean, they're not as good as Rand Squawk, don't get me wrong, but I've been very happy with their service. And they were pointing out yesterday that they had a move like this in October of 2015. And it was off of an FOMC meeting, and it was like a very similar thing that like the market was realizing that the monetary stimulus wasn't going to be as easy as they thought it was, and that led to kind of a extended down market that really didn't recover until after Donald Trump got elected. So yeah, I would be concerned about that, and uh, the idea that you can just come out and say the right thing to the market and everything is, I think, a little silly. In fact, maybe may start to be more problematic because then what you're going to start to see is, Kudlow came out and it didn't do anything. So now him coming out actually starts to be a sign of weakness. Yeah, they got to be careful with those. There's this guy in the Discord. He was trying to figure out, okay, well, like, what's a third standard deviation move, and how should I set my own margin based off of that? And then he looked at it and he was like, oh, I should pretty much set it to what the intraday margin rates are set for. Oh man, what's the worst slippage you've had? I think a handle? Oh, I don't know.
Vlad Stolyarov says Maker will go down once everything is back to normal. The ultimate trap economy starts recovery growth. Slightly smiling face. Vlad Stolyarov says
Right?
market.
I've been wondering that myself, Vlad. Are we running into a situation now where like the recovery is fully priced in, and now we have to start pricing in the, how weak is the economy after that? And so now is like, you know, they're going to move down. Like, and one of the problems that I see is that because we had such just a crazy bull market pushing us up here, the market structures below us aren't very solid. Mm. Basically, I'm concerned that when we have a down move, that they could be really extreme, right?
Vlad Stolyarov says yeah.
I felt that the downturn in March was extreme. I felt like when we were having those 7 to 15% down days, that was crazy. I didn't think that it
Vlad
was
Stolyarov
justified.
says smart money seems to be exiting on high volumes in down moves.
They were definitely yesterday, right? Because we saw all of the shorts, like off of that initial down move, all of the passive market makers that had shorts on covered them. So all of that selling afterwards was not like, some guys that took the move the wrong way and kind of got stuck. It was either retail traders aggressively pushing it and going short, or it was people with much longer positions, all of these big funds basically bailing. And then you look at the market on close, which I think can be an okay indication of how the bigger players are positioning, because they're the ones that really have to utilize the close to transact. And that was pretty aggressive. That was pretty heavy to the sell side.
Vlad Stolyarov says pretty scary.
So one of the things that was interesting was I posted my video to one of the Facebook groups, and somebody was saying, well, it wasn't that bad of a move. It was just a pullback. And it's like, well, I mean, in terms of the number of points that it moved, he's right. We've had bigger down moves intraday, even in the last 2 weeks. I think that the move that we had last week when they sold into the close was probably worse. But the difference is that this one involves people selling because of something the Federal Reserve said, right? And that strikes at the heart of the rally.
Vlad Stolyarov says well why it dipped 1% lull in 20 minutes just on not hearing the ultimate Fed pump story.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's another thing that's funny about it, is that it wasn't like there was something that they said in there that was really concerning. It was what they didn't see. Wow. So because you're not going to get yield curve control, that's the end of the world? Even after they've been telling you for like 2 months that they don't want to do it? There's some real structural problems in the markets if that scares you. And I mean, that's the thing, is my initial impression was, oh, the meeting minutes look pretty good. They look like they're going to be pretty accommodative. And then it turned into, oh, we're not going to get yield curve control. This is so
Vlad
bad.
Stolyarov
It's like,
says market truly
wow.
believes in fairy tales.
So I was saying, somebody, oh man, who was it?
Vlad Stolyarov says until it doesn't hear them.
Anthony Crudelli. Yes. Kind of a competitor of ours, I guess, but I like that guy so much, and I think that he totally deserves to have the position that he does in the community. And he was retweeting somebody that was saying it was like the Federal Reserve came and pulled the rug out. And I was like, well, yeah, but they've been saying this for a month. And the guy agreed with me. It was like, you've been in denial for a month, and now you're finally realizing that what the situation is. Yeah, there's sections of
Vlad
this market that
Stolyarov
have been
says
in big
dollar index
denial.
went up 0.8% too.
And the dollar index is hitting up hard right now. Wow. White House economic advisor Kudlow says Kudlow sees 20% growth in third and fourth quarters. Okay. Do you see what I mean?
Gary Rich says retail traders do not push or pull on a market. That's an old maiden's tale.
So I saw a study. I tried to find this again for you guys because I couldn't find it. It was on Zero Hedge, I believe, and J.P. Morgan did a study about how much impact certain groups of traders had on the market, and like the hedge funds or whatever it was, like those big funds, was the most influential at like 25% or something like that, and retail traders were something like 18%, and they were the second most influential. So the common wisdom that I hear from people, that the retail traders don't even matter at all, is false. They're not they're not the most certainly not the most influential players, right? But they do matter. Now, the issue is you got to realize, you got to think about it as like, what are retail traders as a whole, right? Because I think a lot of the time you and I think about retail traders as like, all these guys that are trading with the moving average and stuff. But really, it's not. Really, it's like, all of these mom and pops, and, people that
Vlad
are
Stolyarov
just
says they
buying
matter to buy
stocks.
AAPL at 2 trillion.
Yeah. It's just these people that are buying stocks and maybe hold them long term even. But when they all decide that they really like Tesla or Apple or whatever is the most popular name at the time, it is a significant thing, and it does matter to the markets quite a bit. Not sure why we brought that up though, because I mean, when we're talking about like the market is in denial, seems to me like it was some big institutions here. There was some really big guys that really thought that yield curve control was coming or something, and were disappointed, even though the Federal Reserve has been telling them for a month that they don't want to do it. Am I wrong? That volume yesterday, like, the crazy thing is, the retail traders still don't believe it. What has happened is, all of the institutional players was said, "Oh, that's bad," and sold yesterday. And all of the retail traders are out here saying, this is just a pullback. We'll be back at highs by the end of the day.
Winston's mom says speculator Seth, was it, do retail trades move markets? Brad M. Barber University of Faculty Haas Berkeley Adu Odin Papers Abstract _id equals 869,827.
I don't think so.
Gary Rich says what defines a retail trader? If they buy via a passive fund through their pension fund or mutual fund, that's considered a retail trader. Not the
Yep.
way many think.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like these retail day traders. I'm sure that the impact that the retail day traders have is, very small on the market as a whole. Maybe not so small on individual issues, but on the market as a whole, it's probably not. Probably not something that you can even really try and like gather enough information to really know what they're doing. White House Economic Advisor Kudlow, I think the U.S. stock market is correctly portraying a V-shaped recovery. He's trying really hard. Like, when I read these comments coming through the Twitter, I'm not watching his interview or anything. It seems to me like it's all just designed to try and trigger algorithms, but it's not working. No, it was by J.P. Morgan.
Vlad Stolyarov says I saw someone who didn't have any interest in trading get interest just BC their employer given shares like MSFT grew this year and they already have FOMO fears.
Oh yeah, it's totally. Well,
Dev
I was.
Pluto says hey Seth.
Hey Dev, how you doing? I saw that you had subscribed to the Patreon. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I mean, I was seeing people on my Facebook. It wasn't I wasn't necessarily seeing like the communists on my Facebook getting into stocks, But I was seeing some regular everyday people that never really invested in markets getting into stuff. So I had this one friend, I knew him because I helped him on a campaign. He would run for office. And he was buying airline and cruise line stocks. I'm like, this is a bad idea, man. Who is gonna go on a cruise? I don't think for years. I think it's gonna be years before, if ever. I honestly tell, like, straight up.
Vlad Stolyarov says lol. Vlad Stolyarov
Come
says
on.
stock market going up seems like only good news.
Who here wants to go on a cruise ship now? I am like, I don't think I'll ever do it now. It sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Like, even I don't think that I'll die from some disease, but what I do think will happen is I'll get quarantined for a month. You know? Why, who would go on a cruise now? It's the worst investment ever. Because even if you get like the market oversold, and they did make money off of that, but I think in the long run they're not going anywhere. Airlines may be a different story, but airlines, it's going to be a very, very long recovery. Anyways, it was like,
Def Pluto says check this.
if you post the link, I probably won't be able to see it, Duff. It edits the links out. YouTube does. This guy in Discord, he's wondering like what the most slippage that you'll get.
Def Pluto says oh okay, Tether just minted $1 billion.
Wow. 1 billion. Wow. Wait, is the price already reacting? No, they haven't moved yet. That's disturbing. That's not the first time they've done that though, is it? Like the amount of Tether out there that's issued now is crazy. I don't think people realize how much of the Bitcoin market, the money that is in the Bitcoin market, is from Tether. And then when you find out that at least at one time it was not all backed, that's so scary, man. If it, the Department of New York Attorney General actually finds something and they win their court case and everything, Bitcoin is fucked. Like my metrics say that like something around, I think it was 5,000 was like the lower bound. But if something like that happened, they could go to practically zero. Maybe not. I mean, Tether, Ethereum is doing well, right? There's other Bitcoins that are doing well, so who knows how much those are affected by Tether. But it won't kill it. But it is just, it'll be a really ugly move. White House advisor Kudlow says Trump administration remains engaged on phase 1 trade deal with China. New York City teachers threaten to strike if schools reopen without more coronavirus protections. Well, I do see that the euro did slip below that spot that we were worried about. So the euro is at new fresh lows. 6J was moving down with it. They're all kind of recovering a little bit. Gold also down, but not so dramatically in gold. They're at 1937 right now. I do see we're kind of close to my target. I don't know if I can actually get 3350 though. Well, I guess we're gonna find out what happens because They're going to do this open, so I'm going to put this right here just in case we get lucky. Pleased with progress under phase 1 deal. U.S. Trade Representative pleased with progress of phase 1 deal. Okay. So initial move is a sell. Market is still pretty slow, to be honest.
Vlad Stolyarov says it's good weather today. Maybe people buy the early low dip.
Yeah. Well, they're certainly trying right there. It looks like the NASDAQ is once again kind of driving them different directions. Minimize that. Change in cumulative delta isn't very significant. Okay. Let them do their thing because I'm a little. That was a bit too tepid, and I'm a little concerned about the buy the dip effect coming in here. We were very, very close to the stop out, so that they didn't go for it is like a real possibility. I think I did the right thing there. I wish I had gotten the 30, but it's okay. It ended up being a good trade in the end. We just had to wait for it, you know. Now I'm wondering, so I can see 58 kind of comes back into the balanced area. 58 to 67. And I'm sure now after that, the retail traders are definitely going to be in a buy the dip mode. So I wonder if they can actually get it back up there.
Vlad
They're going to be
Stolyarov
like,
says
fill the
Think or
gap,
Swim
right?
is working today.
Let's see here. 2A, I keep reminding myself that this is option expiration week, meaning that when the market is down, puts are closed, which forces dealers to close short hedges, which in turn supports prices. Conversely, the market is up, calls are closed, which forces dealers to close long hedges, which in turn pressures the market. But there are spots like 33.45. So important. If that is broken, it will create a large price swing, which may trigger delta hedge meltdown, meaning the large amount of expiring put positions suddenly becomes in the money, which will force dealers to open large short positions to hedge those options. 33.45. Now backing away from it. Steve Bannon charged with fraud by New York prosecutor. Okay. Sounds like a political prosecution, but let's see what they've got. Wouldn't be surprised if he was involved in fraud, to be honest. Oh yeah. Also, a story that came through my feed here: Russia to begin large-scale testing of COVID-19 vaccine next week, equivalent to a phase 3 trial. That's kind of scary, but okay. They'll do their thing. What happens, happens.
Vlad Stolyarov says 11,300 is a level on NQ I think and 11,438 high matches with some fib profit targets.
Well, so far you're getting the buy. and they've almost retraced this move. Like I said, 58 is kind of like the spot. So you might see sellers try and defend 58. I don't think I want to touch that spot. Given the dynamics of it, yeah, see that right there? Because that's hitting it way too hard. The dynamics here are as such that I don't want to play this area. If I'm gonna make a short, I want it to come all the way up to the top. I want to let them
Vlad
think
Stolyarov
they've
says
won.
AAPL jumps 0.65%.
Really. So, question: how much of this do you think is retail trading? I think when you don't see any action, like it's so slow in the pre-market,
Vlad Stolyarov says NVDA down only 1.5% after earnings.
they're down 1.5. Really? Their earnings were really good. Their computing made more than their gaming hardware. Like, that's really good, because that business is worth so much more money in the long run. Okay, so there's I just kind of so now we're going into kind of like the action from the news, right?
Vlad Stolyarov says they probably go green and you get FOMO.
Could be.
Vlad Stolyarov says saves the whole market.
I have to keep reminding myself that what we saw yesterday was significant and it's a key inflection point, but that doesn't mean that the market has to turn down. It could result in a change in market behavior, but a market that is still bullish, you know? Hmm. Rasmussen reporting today that Trump is at 51% approval. That's interesting. Oil futures extend losses. U.S. crude for September down $1 a barrel. Check on them. Oh, yes. Quite down in oil. So I take it that dollar strength that came in pre-market really hammered oil, huh? Okay, so now 33.62 is like perfectly balanced. Let's see here. Former Trump advisor Bannon charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud in relation to fundraising campaign to support the building of a U.S.-Mexico border wall, says the Justice Department. Everybody's picking up on this now. Probably not too critical to us because Bannon is still not on Trump's good side as far as I can tell. I need to come in here and do something. Clear the levels. Okay. So the previous day's low was 33.65. Yes. Okay. Good to know. Treasuries are like, they seem to be okay the way things are. Charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. So is it like if they say, oh, well, can we do X thing? And then they say, no, that's illegal and they didn't do it. And then that's conspiracy to commit wire fraud? Why didn't they let him do it? Why is it just conspiracy to do the thing? That's a little weird, isn't it? Is it normal to be charged with just conspiracy to commit wire fraud? We need a legal expert. Where's Alan? We need Alan in here. I think he would have insightful comments here. Man, everybody's just retweeting this now. This is the big news. Steve Bannon arrested and indicted by Manhattan U.S. attorney and is in federal custody. That apparently is a wow. How? Anybody know a whole lot about wire fraud? Wait, how does wire fraud? Okay, let's research wire fraud. Wire fraud. Yeah, of course, it's all over on the Twitter. Financial fraud involving the use of telecommunications or information technology. What is wire fraud? Wire fraud is a crime in which a person concocts a scheme to defraud or obtain money
Vlad
based on
Stolyarov
false
says laundering
representation or promises. This criminal act is achieved using analog or digital electronic communications or an interstate communications facility. These can include a phone call, fax, email, text. Wire fraud is punishable by prison and or fines. The U.S. Department of Justice Criminal Resource Manual cites these as key elements of wire fraud. 1, that the defendant voluntarily and intentionally devised or participated in a scheme to defraud another out of money. That the defendant did so with the intent to defraud. That it was reasonably foreseeable that interstate wire communications would be used. And that interstate wire communications were, in fact, used. So, Steve Bannon was talking about spreading false information that could potentially defraud somebody out of money, but they arrested him before he did it. I don't know. Seems like something that they would fight over, don't you know? Don't you?
Winston's mom says WSJ, a media company linked to former Trump political advisor Steve Bannon and exiled Chinese businessman Guo Wengi, raised more than $300 million in a private offering this spring. Culture Horse says don't forget Obama direct support #Solyndra scandal equals $500 million of taxpayer funding, but Bannon has nothing to do with White House. Winston's mom says that is now being investigated by federal and state authorities, say people familiar with the matter, J.P. Morgan Chase & Co., and Wells Fargo & Co., have frozen accounts tied to fundraising for the. Vlad Stolyarov says AAPL only up 0.85% now. Winston's mom says company GTV Media Group, some of these people said. Bank of America Corp. also closed an account for GTV Media's parent company shortly after. Vlad Stolyarov says bulls really know where to press buttons, AAPL.
Right. I'm not sure if they're done yet here. Like there was a turn there. You think, oh, okay, maybe we could go short there. Not so sure about that one. Let them have their moment, I think. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Not long ago, in order to perpetuate a scheme, fraudsters had to rely on the telephone to make hundreds of calls to try and hook a hapless, gullible retiree or lonely heart. The old-fashioned phone call is still employed as a means to contact prey, but today, with the awesome power of the internet to find potential victims, a fraudster's work can be done online with few fake postings, a picture, a tale of woe, promise of untold riches, or everlasting love, and all this can be written with bad grammar and spelling. If you get such messages or solicitations, okay, A common example of wire fraud is the Nigerian prince scam. Gotcha. So they're saying that he made a false representation in his fundraising calls, probably. So then it's going to turn over into, was this thing that Steve Bannon said actually true or not? And they would have to prove that he knew that thing was false, right? That he intentionally devised a scheme to say that that thing was wrong with the intent to get money from people, and that it was foreseeable that interstate, of course, that part would be like for sure. I think that this case is going to be way more like, it seems like, like he's going to get charged and they're going to fight it, and he might not actually be found guilty. And it may end up being a overly, a case where the prosecutor was politically motivated and overly aggressive. But I don't know. I'm not a lawyer yet. But that's a possibility. I guess it doesn't really matter to the market. I don't think that Steve Bannon, if Steve Bannon mattered to Donald Trump at all anymore, Steve Bannon wouldn't be doing this fundraising to try and build the wall. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's a little further extension, as I kind of suspected. So I think that first initial move, remember when we were down here, it was like there's a little bit of a down move. I wasn't getting what I wanted, and then I took it off. So the rest of this is the guys like me that just weren't as fast, right? And that would be up to about here. That would take you up to about here. Now this area in here is just, kind of the middle zone where they're working it out. But so far it's like nothing but buying, so like it's fine. Now they get up there, 33, 65, 33, 67. Where's the previous close? 69. Which is kind of where I'm looking at. That would be closing the gap, right? So it's possible that they make it all the way up to there. Although I don't know if I really want to take a trade off of that yet. Yeah, blow my nose.
Culture Horse says consider source DNC and leftist corrupt SDNY are just attacking Trump as part of coordinated convention judicial and media defamations.
Sure. I mean, anytime that it's New York and somebody connected with Trump world, you kind of have to assume that that might be involved. But that doesn't mean that the person won't get found guilty, So, yeah. A lot of interest in the story, though, I tell you that. CBS News has learned he is expected to plead not guilty. One count of conspiracy to commit money laundering after allegedly. Oh, so there's 2 charges now. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering after allegedly orchestrating a scheme to defraud hundreds of donors in We Build the Wall fundraiser. Okay, what do you got? CB leading index at the top of the hour. Let's see if Donald Trump supporters think about what's going on with Mr. Bannon. Steve Bannon arrested. Seriously, this is war. Get your rifles. Good freaking grief. Chill out, bro. Chill out. Wow. Okay. Steve Bannon. Another one was Steve Bannon indicted for the We Build a Wall scam. So some people in the Donald Trump subreddit think that the We Build a Wall thing is a scam. I think that what it's going to come down to, I bet you that this is going to end up being way more political than you would expect from the original headline. I think that what they're going to say is, Steve Bannon is saying we're collecting this money to rebuild the wall, but then the reality is they're like buying up private property and putting their own wall on it, and they're going to say that that's misleading to people, and that's why it's wire fraud.
Mads Mahler says, where do you find this information? Smiley face.
Well, the Steve Bannon story, I just saw it on Twitter. So use TweetDeck, tweetdeck.twitter.com, and then it'll give you a feed that's updating as new tweets come in, and so you'll see things immediately as they happen. Really good tool. And then I have a Financial Juice squawk going, but they haven't talked about that. Cat Turd now talking about it. CNN talking about it. They have any more information? No, CNN doesn't have much more information. Did he delete the status? I guess so. That's funny. First comment here on the Donald is, and yet the Clinton Foundation slush fund goes uninvestigated. I mean, he's got a point. He's got a point.
Vlad Stolyarov says if market is still bullish it goes revisits highs. Vlad Stolyarov says NQ I thought would stall but initial push-up was very fast, could run up more. Mads Mahler says if your guy's ever is boring, try to take a look at Stephen Kalajian. When he is live streaming. Do you know him, Seth? Slightly smiling face. Mads Mahler says if your guy's ever is boring, try to take a look at Stephen Kalajian. When he is live streaming. Do you know him, Seth? Slightly smiling face.
Never heard of him. I to be honest, I just don't watch other streamers because every time that I try to watch another streamer, it just drives me crazy because they say stuff that I'll know is just not true, or whatever it is. I'm sure that I do say things that aren't true sometimes, and maybe and I don't. But I want to be my own independent person, and so I'm really intentionally don't consume certain medias in that if I think that it would influence me. That makes sense. So I'm only interested in consuming things if there's actually valuable information in there, like about the market, like news, like breaking news, right? Or politics. but like somebody else's trading philosophy is. Of course, I do keep track of like the big names in the industry that are like the what do we want to call like the reputable names in futures trading, but there's a lot of other streamers and there's a lot of day traders on YouTube. Like there's a lot of day trading channels that are way more popular than us, right? Like we're at 3,000 subscribers and there's some day traders that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Oh man, they must make a ton of money off of YouTube, I'll tell you that. Because you don't need a whole lot of clicks to get a good money from advertising. Not that we make a ton, but like the RPM is like $10. So they're making, thousands of dollars a week.
RJ Wheels says in September 2016 Republicans said Clinton would have to stop foundation. Dems pushed back. Oh, so we stop funding saving babies in Africa. That will die without the CF. She loses and stops.
It's interesting.
Live Action says and they can't trade a lick. RJ Wheels says where are the dead African babies?
Let's see if I find anything more here. No, okay, let me try searching just for Bannon's name. Bannon. No. How do you do a search and change it how it searches?
Live Action says brings to mind pay to play.
The way that it's because I don't know a whole lot about that, but a lot of people have, disliked it because they say that it's misleading because they're not really building the wall.
Live Action says Seth get my email?
I did. Oh, did I not respond back to? I thought I responded to that one. I did. The thing that I was curious, let me show you guys what he was
Gary
showing
Rich
me.
says they all got Ebola. Didn't you hear Clinton Foundation coughed on them with Ebola?
Yeah, I did respond to it. So he was showing me that on mine in the 2-year that it was that really correct? There's because if yours said 40,000 and mine said 7,000, that's got to be a bug. That can't be just the CQG data. You know what I mean?
Live Action says
Yeah.
yes.
There's something wrong with that. It is a bug. Now I know that there's been some things with the way that blah, 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 the way that Jigsaw gathers the information to do the volume profile has been a problem with some of the data feeds, and it was
Mike
grabbing
Salisbury
too much
says mine said
info.
the same as the above yesterday. 2 years data.
It was like with Rhythmic, people were getting messages from Rhythmic saying that they were using too much data because they would reload their DOM and it would reload all of the data from the day, and that was too much.
Vlad Stolyarov says this is the area on NQ where I would be short yesterday.
So I think that
Vlad
that might
Stolyarov
be a
says
bug.
75 to 85.
But I would still argue that the reason why trading technology tends to be preferred among the professional traders is because it has the auto spreader and because it has all of those order types.
Vlad Stolyarov says you can see QQQ volumes grow.
Right? Like I can create a synthetic iceberg.
Live Action says
in
I've
TT.
compared with other platforms and in TT shows as much as triple the amount.
I don't know how to explain that. What you should do is you should ask the platform. You should mail Jigsaw and be like, what's with this? or male CQG, like they'd look at it, because that right there, when it's like tens of thousands, there's got to be a bug. But no, and TT, we get some news here. The CB leading index. I don't see any pulling, so I don't think it'll be significant. But it looks like they buy on it a little bit. I don't actually see the news yet though, so I don't know if it was actually released. That buying might have just been like top of the hour algorithms. Okay, so it's 1.4 versus 1.1. That is CB leading index, which is a change in the level of composite index based on 10 economic indicators. Tends to have immediate impact because most of the indicators
Vlad
used in
Stolyarov
calculation
says
were released
AAPL stalling.
previously. Bit of stalling there, huh? Well, we're close to an area where we could see a turn. Not quite coming out the way that I want to see it happen. So maybe I just take that one trade and be done. I don't know. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, you can create a synthetic iceberg in TT. That's useful, especially if you're a big trader. I don't know if any of the other retail software can do that, right? That's why they use TT. And then they just happen to have the best data. But ding, 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 ding. About 50 billion in cryptocurrency assets have left China in the past year. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah. See, they're looking. So there was an outside bar. So we're gonna get another round of price discovery here. And I suspect that it may end up being another push higher. There's got to be
Vlad Stolyarov says oil down 3%.
Just still kind of looking at the Biden, the Bannon thing, and I'm sure that there's like one that's gonna have a lot more activity on it, but
Live Action says trading much easier when you have better data feed. Winston's mom says, traders gonna trade, and 32 watching now. Please take a quick second to hit the like button. Thank you.
link in the video description below.
Vlad Stolyarov says I expect technical traders short NQ here.
Maybe. They're still not to the previous close. I think that the previous close or the opening range high they might want to try and test those.
Vlad Stolyarov says if they wrong it might squeeze up to 11,400.
But there's also just the positioning wise, they should be able to squeeze this up to 3370. I think they've still got some. Now they've got some issues though, because the buyers aren't able to buy. They had anybody that's long basically did it with a market order. There hasn't been a lot of fills from, at least from my calculation. I only see 139 long passive longs held, and a lot short, 8,000, almost 9,000 short.
Vlad Stolyarov says ZM new daily highs up only 4.2%. Vlad Stolyarov says dip buying still works this week. Vlad Stolyarov says NQ now trying for squeeze. Live Action says I have only one trade on NQ the breakout period and even that one is hard for me.
Well, they're having some difficulty up there.
Luis Alarid says Zoom school's using it now in California.
You see that the level 2 is shifting a little bit. It used to be just buy, 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 buy. Now it's a bit mixed.
Vlad Stolyarov says you treat it with tights aggressive stops.
I guess the most popular thread is this one with only 5 comments. Sure that this Steve Bannon thing is going to be a lot of political theater. People are obviously very interested in it. Well, I'm interested in it, but only because it was like everybody tweeted it. Hey, Facebook bans Antifa accounts and other groups promoting violence. Finally. So you know what? Live action. Oh, I was having another thought. Here's another thought. If you are a profitable trader, consistently profitable over the course of years, and you're making enough money that to cover those kinds of increased costs, why wouldn't you use TT? But I think that for most of us, TT doesn't really make sense.
Live Action says S testing overnight high. Don't know what NQ is testing, but correlation may be in play.
Yeah, look there, and there's the next step.
Vlad Stolyarov says NQ now squeezing.
Sunday Driver says sup.
Vlad Stolyarov says you can take
Morning.
profits.
Yeah, if I was long here, I think I would be getting out on this.
Vlad Stolyarov says 277.89 QQQ area.
Still waiting for a real excess.
Sunday Driver says civilization in decline.
You say so. So I'm noticing
Vlad
that.
Stolyarov says that would mean if shorts give up I would still reshort there.
Yeah, well, so one thing is that there was this high, like the last swing was at 33.68. I think they're probably likely to go through that. They're just toying with us still. It would be a little bit too easy of a trade to be like, oh, it came one tick short of the previous pivot, and we go short, and then it just turns into a disaster. That's not
RJ Wheel says Sunday we reliving in a disaster film.
like if it starts doing that, then I might buy the dip on that one because that's just a little too obvious.
Live Action says TT more affordable today, 50 a month offset with 0.30 they tack on top of commission versus 400 a month before.
Yes, unless you want the pro features, right? So there are like pro features and stuff.
Vlad Stolyarov says got to remember market loves negative news.
Which
Live
negative
Action
news?
says yes.
Which negative news?
Vlad Stolyarov says more jobless market up.
Yeah. So the problem with the jobless claims was that even though the jobless claims was significantly higher than, well, I don't want to say significantly. It's really hard
Sunday
to
Driver
judge
says,
what's
is the market a
significant or
forward-looking
not,
tool
right?
any longer? What is keeping sticks up?
But it was higher than all of the estimates. So let's put it that way. But continuing jobless claims was lower. That might not necessarily be a good thing because that might be people just coming off and quitting. But um, can't trade that one. I've seen that happen in the past, and people come in with that theory, and it never works out. So the jobless claims news was actually more mixed than it may appear because of the continuing claims. And then there was the Philly Fed, but that was like 17 versus 21, right? The Philly Fed isn't usually all that influential, anyways. So I look at the news as mixed.
Sunday Driver says, are we in the age of robots where human happiness no longer matters?
I look at it as mixed, and the market was really slow and just kind of sat and did nothing for a long time before selling off into the open. Then as soon as the open came
Johan
in, all of the
Pearson
dip
says I'm
buying
using
came in.
TT trial right now. It's really good, but too expensive for me.
Yeah, I think that they come out. You're getting the stop out right there at 68. I'm still a little weary about it. I think that they might be a bit more messing around up here. So I will. I'll try that. Yeah. So I mean, the thing is for me, the TT it has a good DOM, but it doesn't have all of the features that Jigsaw does. So that's kind of why I'm still like, can't go over to TT. I mean, I should because Patrick Rooney, I love that guy. I mean, we don't talk or anything, but we follow each other on Facebook. I see him in the Facebook groups all the time. I see him on Twitter all the time. I love all the stuff that he posts. He's so great. And he's not pushing this nonsense that a lot of people push to try and get people to buy the software, right? He's just like doing his thing. He's trading like here's the move and here's why this thing is happening. Here's why this thing is happening. It's professional. And it's the way that professionals trade. They changing expectations of the future. And the software is good. It's just the DOM just wasn't as customizable as I wanted. That was all. That was really the gist of it. So far today for real Donald Trump. Steve Bannon is in custody. Federal judge rules against Trump over his tax returns. Stock market falling as jobless total rises. Obama's tax still reverberating. And it is 10 a.m. in Washington. Oh, so there's more to come, maybe? I don't know. I don't think that the Steve Bannon arrest really is too important to Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump and Steve Bannon have kind of been on the off for a long time.
Live Action says tell that to NQ.
Yeah, and to say that the market is like falling apart, it was like, well, yesterday was bad. So far, since the regular session open, we've had a pretty crazy up move. About 8,000 contracts long, almost no short action at all. So I wouldn't necessarily call that failing markets at all.
Live action says I am sick and tired of all the naysayers. Is the market passing the moon?
Right? Well, we're talking about the fall of society. It's kind of interesting the way that all went down yesterday, right? Because it's bad for the markets, but it's positive for the dollar. It's kind of like, man, some of the guys and some of the traders in gold, if they're short-term trading it and they're not, catching the right spots, they're really getting tossed around, huh? It's like you can't win because something bad happens and it still goes down. But that something bad is good for the dollar and vice versa, right? It's kind of funny I think that if you're in gold, you want to see the equities rally just continue forever, right?
Vlad Stolyarov says I think too many people got bearish on QQQ. Vlad Stolyarov says yesterday. Vlad Stolyarov says I saw an option flow.
Really? Well, so far this one, it's like I might have caught the wrong spot, at the very least, because they're still kind of just hitting into that high. And NQ doesn't look like looks fairly calm at the moment. Right, we are seeing
Vlad
the
Stolyarov
treasuries
says it
move
was
down.
like 80% bearish.
Really? Well, it seems to me that there was a dramatic difference of opinion between the retail traders and the professional traders yesterday on this, right? The retail traders don't think it matters. Professional traders was like those funds were just like outright bailing yesterday. They were scared, like overly scared, frankly. And I mean,
Sunday Driver says long-term
still below
fundamentals for gold
yesterday's
still
close.
intact.
Yeah. It's just if you're not trading it right. If I was day trading oil, or sorry, hold on a second. They're saying something. If I was day trading gold, I don't know if I'd be doing very well. Maybe my methods would work really well over there, but you're just getting tossed around a lot, right? And it seems to be going down at the exact moment when a lot of retail traders would want it to go up. Okay, so that was too much right there. I'm gonna have to. Oh, dang it! Too slow.
Vlad Stolyarov says S almost at gap fill.
Yeah. Well, they got above the previous close. Oh, they didn't fill me there. Good God. Wow. Well. Mm-mm-mm. Look at the treasuries.
Live action says S spike NQ not following. S may fall back here.
Okay, so this price action is quite aggressive here. So I think Okay, we're okay. I wish I could have limited that to only 10, but that's fine. It's just a few ticks. And obviously, when I got out of that first position, I could have flipped, and that would have been a way better trade. Well, it could have been 10 points. Um, hmm. But I thought that that volume up there was a little extreme. Just wait here for a little bit. Because it is kind of doing what I wanted. It's just was like way early. You know what? I'm going to do this and I'm just going to walk away from it for a second.
Vlad Stolyarov says the large cap stocks are ones that push this move higher. Vlad Stolyarov says look at Finviz map.
Let's see here. Yes, Spike and NQ not following may fall back here. Wow. Somebody's doing something at 69. Is somebody trying to be funny here? Oh, I sound weird. Do I sound different to you guys? I think we're okay. Well, there was a lot traded at 66. It's doing it again, guys.
RJ Wheels says the fundamentals for gold haven't changed since one of 3 wise men invested in it.
I don't know about that one. The fundamental is
RJ Wheels says the Muir guy got
dollar
killed
strength.
though.
You know what, though, on this last little extension, though, there's
Live action
definitely
says
some...
that this you will find comforting the volume
Hold
on
back.
your S ladder is the same as TT above overnight high.
Oh, yeah. See, it would definitely, like, especially on my E-mini, they should be almost exactly the same, because I've had it open, you know? Okay. It's not working out. That buying that brought us up here sure looked... What do you say? FOMO looked like some serious FOMO getting in there when we get to above previous close, right? Now on the one, did I get? Oh, see, it didn't even give me any favorable, barely any favorable ticks. Huh. Hmm. Okay.
Johan Persson says wasn't yesterday's close 3,372.50.
What
Live
was
action
that?
says I think the issue with discrepancy may be the start time of data collection on volume.
Mine listed as 3369. There's a lot of little things like when the opens and closes are
Gary
and
Ridge
things
says
that
this
can
market is
be
skittish,
off
like a
between...
long-tail cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Meow.
You think so, Gary? I found that action right there that I clicked in on to be curious. I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't already looking for a short in this area, but as depressing as it may be, we learned in the last recession that the economy can still make forward progress even with high unemployment. Well, they're right. I wouldn't read the
Gary Rich says watch
unemployment
the gamma
report
suck
as a
come off
huge
hard
deal.
especially tomorrow.
You think so? Do you think that it will be higher or lower? It looks to me like they got to just to the edge of where the gamma would be a really big problem, and then they rescued it. They didn't rescue it, but it just didn't happen.
Live action says market exhibiting all the signs of an underlying neuroses today.
Yes, well, if they're going to buy, I don't have a whole lot to work off of in terms of how far that can go. There's not a lot of longs on. I still see that area below us. Like if they got below 33.55, I
Block
think that
sell.
50 and 48 would be like an easy. Now look at the treasuries here. This is scary.
Live action says with treasuries obviously depressed.
Yeah. Well, the treasuries made a pretty big move back recovery yesterday, right? They're higher than their high of yesterday. Which I think, especially with that block sell that we just saw at 18.
Gary Rich says spot gamma is worth the 44 per months and dark pools printed big on many things.
You think so? The issue I have with spending money for the spot gamma is that so many people repost it. You know what I mean? It's 45 is the spot where it drops off the cliff, right? 33.45 kind of looks a little ugly. Tentative COVID vaccine panel expected in October. Okay.
Yuri says any ADA about gold? Right now?
They're down on the day largely, but recovering and kind of just a lot of sideways in gold, to be honest, between 1940 and 1960. Of course, I got into that, and they're gonna
Gary
retrace
Rich
here
says
in the
yeah, go long
treasury.
calls on GLD.
What the hell? Is that because of the vaccine panel? That must be the robots got the vaccine panel news. So I'll try it.
Johan Persson says how reliable is reconstructed tape at Jigsaw when it comes to piecing together big orders?
I'd say it's pretty good. Um, it's a reconstructed tape, so there are going to be some instances where it's not correct. I don't know. I keep getting questions like this from you guys. Like I don't know if it's just like when I tell you guys that okay, like there are some instances where some of this stuff it's reconstructed, and so what it's telling you is not 100% the truth, and like you make a really big deal out of
Gary
it.
Rich says
It's
the
not. It's
vaccine data
splitting
for COVID is
hairs.
such crap once you drill into it. What a joke.
I don't know, man. That's got to be what just happened there. Man. Hmm. Hmm.
Johan Persson says I was just wondering if recon tape is more useful compared to Reg T and S smiley face.
I like the reg. You mean you're talking about the which one is it? Oh. Oh, so the recon tape in Jigsaw. So let me start over on that because I didn't quite understand what you were saying. The regular time and sales that you get in like Jigsaw is completely fucking useless. Like seriously, it's useless. I'm listening to the squawk. Listening to the squawk. Yeah, without seeing them reconstructed, I just don't think that the information is very useful. But once you can kind of split them out into size, you kind of get an idea of how significant orders are. And otherwise, you might as well just be looking at individual numbers.
Yuri says how can T and S help you in trading and how to read it?
Well, so with me, so I have one over here kind of hiding right here. See in the lower left? So, for instance, one thing that we saw was that there was a bail at 18. Somebody sold 3,000 contracts into it. That might have been somebody that was long and had to bail. That might be why it's kind of turned a little bit on them since then. But that's a really aggressive order, right? And without the reconstructed tape, you wouldn't know that that's what happened. And you can see that it's had an impact on the market. Like since that order came through, they've reversed a bit. So that's a one point. Another point is that I think that I find that the
Gary Rich says
tapes.
these markets have run too fast too soon. It's natural to see minor pullbacks, not a crash, just minor pullbacks.
Yeah, I'm that last. I thought that news rush there might have
Johan
continued
Persson says
through,
if
and
you have
it's not.
filter out small lots and have a highlight of big orders, I think T and S is useful.
Yeah, so I have one that just shows all of the orders, and then I have one that shows me the big orders. But I find that just kind of having it there in the corner of the screen is kind of nice for pacing. You kind of get a feel for like tempo, I guess you could say. But I wouldn't say that the edge in it is huge. You got to think like I think we want every little thing that we put up here to be like, okay, what's the edge in X thing and how much money, but I don't think that it works that way. I think a lot of it is just like comfort, like what you find interesting, what works for you. Man, if that ends up being where the short was, I'm gonna be pissed because I'm just not trading this well. The treasuries are not falling down anymore. I don't know if that one's gonna hold. It did fall pretty good there though off of that one. It was like a few too many people got in on that one apparently. Maybe now that I've been stopped out, it'll come back up and go to a new high. Hmm. Oh, I am noticing something here. Hold on. I missed. Fine. I'll sell it so it'll come back up. That's the game it's playing with me today. Hmm.
Johan Persson says I agree on TNS. I use it to see block order highlights in the corner of the eye, and you often spot when pace is picking up. Yuri says thank you, hope you catch big icebergs grin.
Well, I so there's another one is like icebergs. It's like I don't know. I like seeing all of these things are I'm not going to say that they don't matter. So they definitely matter. Okay. But it's just like it's kind of all in aggregate, you know? Like the amount of information that any one of those things, and icebergs is a really great example. It's like if I see an iceberg somewhere, I don't know why. I have no clue. You know, it doesn't real why is there 500 there at 33.67.75? I have no clue. Does it matter? A lot of the time it doesn't. Now, if you already know something that's going on and then you see it like, hey, it's an auction day, and then you see the iceberg, and then you know, okay. But it's all like, then at that point, guess what? It's an aggregation of information, right? It's all the things together, and then you understand the bigger picture. And that's what I think you're trying to do is you have a bunch of little tools that tell you a bunch of different things, and some of them are just ways of like I like to have a super smoother on. Only reason that the super smoother is there is because it gives you a good idea of what the current trend is. Because sometimes you don't realize what the trend is. That's the only reason that it's useful. It doesn't. I've tried some back testing some strategies with it. It doesn't have an edge. It's it's break even. Hmm.
Yuri says cool, slightly smiling face.
So I'm wondering. I feel like I'm just off sync with something. Bit more selling there in the 10-year. I don't know, man. Got a lot of numbers in the E-mini telling me that they're probably going to turn here. It's just like, how long will it take? How many times will they mess with you before they do it? It's not turning out to be the best setup. Yeah, so they took 18 again, and there's another. Now there's iceberging on the other side of it in the 10-year. Look at that, 6,000. Why is that there? Well, there's bill auctions today. There is, isn't there? Are we too high for the bill auction? I mean, the short side of the auctions have been the short end of the curve. Maturities been doing well. I don't know if it actually would affect the 10-year that much. I feel like that what we learned yesterday should affect the 10-year too much and more. And if that's the case, then it should be a sell. Wow. Federal court has blocked the Idaho law banning transgender student athletes. Man. I don't think it banned the athletes, right? I think it just prevented them from, you know, playing in the other genders.
Johan Persson says of seen bid ask battle it out on FESX with several thousand contracts without price moving, then when they're done with their buying and selling nothing happens at all. Size
Yeah.
attracts size.
It's true. Sometimes you'll just get two big guys, they just transact, and then that's the end of it. I'm clearly off my game though today, aren't I? On the in the E-mini here, because that shouldn't happen. Like these last few in the E-mini aren't barely giving me any favorable ticks. Come on. Just I want revenge. It's pissing me off. I will try one more since we got plenty of time. And these ones are all
Johan
just
Persson says I guess it's institutions needing size, nothing to do with what's happening outside of that.
could be. I mean, we've seen some really incredibly bullish action today, right? I just question their ability to hold this price up here in the E-mini, frankly. There's a lot of longs. Would not take much to get them all bailing. Well, there's the treasury takes another step. But sometimes what'll happen is you'll just get off sync, right? Like I could have taken that long. I was trying to go long, it didn't work, and it went down, and then I tried to flip, and I'm just flipping in the wrong spots. And it's totally random. I think that might be part of what's happening is that it kind of seems like my larger plan isn't really happening now at this point. After 72, it's my larger plan stopped working. That right there, though, looks excessive. Well, let's come over here and look at a couple things. 78. Okay. Not seeing the dollar make any huge move. How about volume profile? Never really got an excessive number. Hmm. Let's try it. So this volume that's selling in the 10-year treasury is all gone. Spread in the 10 years pretty tight, so see 16.5 and then below that 14.
Live action says market strong today. Congress capitulate on things unrelated to COVID and stimulus greater than.
No, I haven't seen anything about the stimulus today. And actually, when Kudlow was speaking about it earlier, it said that it was still at a standstill. Deposit growth in Turkey picked up in 2020 alongside the credit expansion. If you look at the currency composition of that pickup in deposit growth, around 60% of the recent deposit flow is going into FX deposits, while the balance is into lira deposits. Zero Edge asks how much is in gold. Yeah, that's probably it. Carl Quintilla posting a picture of rush hour traffic in New York, saying that New York is not as dead as maybe some are making it out to be. Which Patrick Rennie is talking about the mini VIX. How much liquidity is in that now? Let's see if his little video shows me. Now it's not playing for me for some reason. Man.
Live action says I am from NY friend yesterday told me city is a mess.
Really? Well, I mean, it sounds like that a lot of people have left, regardless. Okay, this is getting kind of weird action in the treasuries, to be honest. Or not in the treasuries, in the E-mini.
RJ Wheels says there's a guy that posts videos of Manhattan main streets and it looks pretty empty relative to the buzz pre-COVID.
Well, now this one right here, you see? I mean, the street is full. 2nd Avenue at 58. Not a lot of people walking on the street, but there's a little bit of a break lower there in the E-mini. I think I'm going to try and add to this.
Live Action says he said he is afraid for his wife but she has to do business there.
So I see 3370.
Gary Rich says CL traders watch 5 years forwards, St. Lou Fed, it tracks WTI well. I'd be cautious if it can't get above 1.9 or 2%, which means pull back in WTI.
How are they doing over there, by the way? Is there still crazy down in oil? Oh, it completely retraced. Wow. That might explain some of the E-mini action there, to be honest. What the hell was with that?
Live Action says at Gary Rich, thanks for doing the work for us.
That sounds like he's giving you some serious edge. How do you look at the 5-year forwards? Something going on over there in NQ. Treasury coming back.
Ace Trades says morning.
Morning, Ace. I'm trying to think back now. It's like there was a spot where I was like, hey, maybe we da 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 da. Yeah, I don't remember anymore. That last one looks like a good trigger though. Donald Trump files emergency appeal to delay enforcement of Manhattan District
Gary Rich
Attorney
says here's a
subpoena
link
seeking
5
years of
years.
tax returns.
Ace Trades says anyone short from 3,373.00.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly where I took it, Ace. I wasn't exactly looking at your entry when I did it, but it did end up being in the same spot.
Ace Trades says nice. Stay with it a bit.
Yeah, my edge seems to suggest that they are like way what is the word? Way overextended. Like they rode that the whole way up. Some of these longs are going to have to give some up. and it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to justify a continued up move without a pullback to give people a chance to get long. Well, recovering a little bit of it there. It's curious that the treasuries and equities are doing inverse correlation again. Seems like for the most part it's been an inverse correlation. It's a pretty big stack there at 17.5 too. I mean, that's a big stack at 18.5 and 19, but
Live action says 3,373 looked good to short but missed it.
They're kind of equalizing here a little bit at 70.
Ace Trades says at live action don't worry, there will be other trades. Lol.
There's something about this one that makes you particularly like it? No, it seemed like the right trigger. I was trying to think back because there's a couple of spots where I thought, hey, that should be a short, and then it never went.
Ace Trades says nope, just wondered if you caught it.
I'm actually looking back on it, and none of them actually look good except for this one. That's funny. Oh, no, I take that back. There was one around 71. Okay, well, they just took a tick lower, and I'm getting some clicks again. Michigan to pay $600 million to victims of Flint water crisis. They've still got a lot of room to move down. 66, 33, 66, 25.
Live action says at Gary Rich another good link. Where do you find all of these?
When you were talking about it, I thought you were talking about like live data, but I guess what we get there from that St. Louis Fed is fast enough for us. Oh no, well, it's from the St. Louis Fed. I tell you what, any tool from like an official website, so like the CME or any of the government websites, you should
Gary
know
Rich
about
says
those.
my border collie tells me everything. Lol.
Oh, right. Of course. Of course. Now let's reset our DOM here a little bit so we can kind of get a better idea of where we've been.
Ace Trades says at Gary Rich that thing better never die.
What are you gonna do? Maybe you need to get the border collie a friend so that it can teach the friend all of that stuff so that when, heaven forbid they pass on, that knowledge will still be with them.
Live action says that's a smart dog.
Okay. It's gonna take one off there. Since it did so slowly. Treasury's still kind of battling around that 18-17.5 area. So when are the bill auctions? Oh, at the bottom of the hour. Wait, what? A law enforcement source tells NBC New York Steve Bannon was arrested this morning on board a boat off the coast of Westbrook, Connecticut. What? Wait. So they literally went out in to arrest him on a boat. Like what the for conspiracy to commit wire fraud. That whole thing. I don't know if you've been seeing that today, Ace, but apparently Steve Bannon got arrested for conspiracy to commit wire fraud related to his, this little project he's got to build the wall or whatever. The whole thing sounds a little crazy.
Live Action says stay tuned till tomorrow. ZN39, 175.
It's getting thick there at 70, 17, half, and 18, isn't it? Oh, they're like, there's Seth's order. Can't just trade into that. No.
Gary Rich says I own a border collie by default. I'm smart like when you go to a school and every kid makes the honor roll bumper stickers. Lol.
Now I'm like, when my dogs die, I should get a border collie. Just because of Gary. You know what? My grandma had like a miniature collie. And I thought that was the bestest dog. My wife's dogs. I mean, they're really her dogs. She had them before me. Man, can you believe this? That they didn't trade into that? Give me how many times has that happened to me this week now? It is like I am starting to get paranoid about it. I guess like we're in slow action, so like I guess that kind of stuff can happen, but holy crap, man. That's really effing annoying. Well, because here's the thing, around 33.66 is around where I would expect it to try and bounce.
Gary Rich
Maybe
says
get
how
some
does every kid
defense.
make the honor roll? They must pass them out like cookies.
Nah. I bet you that in my area, though, that the honor roll is probably like half of the kids. Okay. What else was I going to say? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Treasury announces refunding details for next week. Let's read that. That's probably why there's all this, right? We got these bond auctions and stuff. This is some massive volume there in the treasuries, right? Okay. 2-year 50 billion, 5-year 51 billion, 7-year 47 billion. In addition, the Treasury will sell 22 billion of 2-year floating rate notes on August 26. U.S. yields today remain lower, but off the session's lowest levels, with the yield curve flattening. The 2 and 10-year spread has narrowed to 50.93 basis points from 54.1 at the close of yesterday. Good shit. Wow. I'm wondering if maybe I should just try and play the cue here.
Live Action says my school you got on the honor roll if you could spell your name.
What? Oh my gosh. So my, remember when my kid got into the, passed the spelling bee or whatever? I think I told you guys this story, but so like, because he was in the school-wide spelling bee, they get in. And basically what happens is the second word that they go through is really, really hard, and nobody can spell it except for two kids or something like that. And then the one kid gets it, and then this other kid gets an easy word, and then the second kid gets a really hard word and fails it, and the other guy wins. It was like mostly luck. So dumb. We're like, why did we even bother? They made it random. Almost makes you wonder if they made it random on purpose. Or I guess you just have to be really good at it, huh? I guess that's the answer to that one, is you just got to be really good at it, so that you don't get caught by the really hard word. Get ready to break out the Tesla 2K hats. Are they still up? Man, Tesla's I just can't believe that one. 1,500 to 2,000.
Gary Rich says was the winner of the spelling bee
in a
from
week?
India. Lol.
They're already at 2,000, and it increases like 50% in a week over. They're doing a stock split. That's some real bullshit right there, man. Do not get caught in that thing when it sells. Holy crap.
PRT1 says Tesla UUUUUMMMMMMM.
It really is it's just a big effing joke, isn't it? Whatever. I mean, it can go up all at once. I guess I don't really care. I'm not in it. We have that kind of... Okay, so finally that got filled. That's nice. It feels nice.
Gary Rich says TSLA gonna split 5-for-1. Stock splits tend to do this.
Stock splits tend to make a stock increase 50%? What? This is just so stupid. Like, I get it, like, okay, more people can buy Tesla if it's lower. And you can play more with the options, and there's like a lot of advantages.
Gary Rich says yes, it can make them run up in price.
But 50% increase in price over something that doesn't change the fundamentals of a stock is come on, it's stupid. That is not... I'm not going to say that you couldn't expect it to happen, but I'm just saying it's not rational, right? It's not rational. Not 50%. That's just crazy. It's going to have to give some of that back. Well, I guess the issue here is that there's still a lot of people looking for it to what is the word, to be included into the S&P 500. I guess that trade is still kind of going on too, right? It's going to be really hard. Like, there's going to be some sort of a collapse, kind of like we saw after the earnings, right? But it's going to be like, if I sit down and I say, and I'm not saying that I've calculated it out or anything, but let's just say for the sake of argument that Tesla from a fundamentals perspective is really only worth $500, right? Then you're going to have to wait for all of the funds to buy it up in the end of the year, and then maybe January, and then maybe it would start going down,
Imagination of Lurid says Powell having a good laugh.
Could be. You're talking about, Lurid, are you talking about more about the run up today? I don't think, well, I mean, Larry was out there really trying super, super hard to talk the market up. The futures didn't care, but then when the open happened, they did buy it. But I read that as just retail traders going to buy the dip and look for the retrace of the overnight gap. And frankly, from my metrics, the degree to which we moved up here this morning was excessive. Excessive as in, like, just based on positioning alone, it's getting really difficult for them to continue. Unfortunately, taking a short off of that is still really effing hard. We caught one. We finally caught one, but I don't know. I think that I come out positive in the end too. Wow, 12K. I'm glad that I took that one off, because when they're going to trade 15K icebergs, that is. Is that correct? Do I have like an extra workspace open or something? I don't think so. $15K is a lot in a 10-year. Anyways, if they decide that they're going to continue further, then I can see a really big portion of this move up, retracing back to 33.57. But for now, there's no reason that they can't stay balanced here around 33.67 area. I should say I see a lot of passive shorts and not a lot of profit taking on this down move.
Vlad Stolyarov says TSLA hit 1973, now 1960.
Oh, remember when we were like, will gold hit 2000 first, or will Tesla? And we were like, oh, for sure gold. Well, now it's kind of a good.
Vlad Stolyarov says FOMO.
Now
Vlad
it's kind of a
Stolyarov
fun
says
trade,
slightly
isn't it?
smiling face.
Yeah, it's totally FOMO. Now it's kind of a fun trade, right? Will gold go back to 2000 first, or will Tesla go back to 2000 first? I think that it's in favor of Tesla at this point, but they're basically the same price. Gold is 1953 right now. Tesla is 1973, but Tesla also has like the momentum, Kind of waiting.
PRT1 says how much gold is in a Tesla. Live Action says what is FOMO? I hear it mentioned all the time.
Given the way that electronics are made and stuff these days, it's probably not zero, right? CFTC dismisses its case against Jitesh Thakkar. Settles with Edge Financial. I don't know who that is. By the way, did you guys see that the kid that got hit for spoofing was convicted? That happened like yesterday, and nobody really said anything about it. All of the press for every other step of the thing, and then when it's done, nobody cares. Okay. It kind of makes me mad that they go after that kid, which, don't get me wrong, he did something wrong, but they go super hard against this kid, and like they let guys like Elon Musk off. Like, Of course, the thing with Elon
Live
Musk
action
is
says
kind of
scapegoat.
stupid too, but you know, they just kind of give him a slap on the wrist. There's all sorts of other nonsense going on that they never even prosecute. I mean, remember all of the shady crap that went on during the trade war news stuff? Like they would know for sure, like they knew that stuff was going to happen and they would mess with you all morning. Ooh. It's not right. Nobody gets prosecuted for that. Donald Trump is talking apparently.
PRT1 says charged for fakeouts.
I feel like I would like to see new leadership in those government agencies. Like the guys under Obama, they tried, but I just don't think that they're.
Live action says so there was only one guy doing this. Pathetic.
I'm sure there was more, but he was the one that did it blatantly. Like the question in my mind is, how much did he do it? Was it like, oh, that one time that I saw that in the E-mini, that was him and that's what they got him for, you know? Like, if it's like that, then like, fuck, it happens every day. Come on. Trump asked for a reaction about the arrest of former advisor Bannon, says he feels very badly. Oh. Okay. This is one of the questions that you always will see from the media. So-and-so got prosecuted. What do you think about that? What a dumb question. Who fucking cares? Seriously. Like, here's what the story should be. Bannon was arrested. Here's what he's charged of. Here's what legal experts think about the charges. What Donald Trump thinks about it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Well, people care. Obviously, people care. It doesn't matter. Okay, I think that. Interesting. Very interesting.
Live action says arrested on his boat. The drama.
This market is really tight for some reason. So when I was watching that, I was wondering if they were going to have a dip that was a bit too much and then come back up into that range, and then maybe I would get out there. Instead, it's kind of doing like a bowl. But like they're pushing up here, it's like gone back into excessive territory again very quickly.
PRT1 says I feel shame. Vlad Stolyarov says there goes NQ.
Right, live action arrested on his boat. That's like when it gets like really crazy. It's like, okay.
Vlad Stolyarov says second attempt to squeeze.
I'm not a lawyer, and I haven't
Salim
read the
L
court
says
documents.
all I care about is red is my favorite color and buy bug shot and a shotgun.
What? Wait, hold on. Let's collect our thoughts here. I'm not a lawyer. Haven't read the charges. I know that the charges are conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Conspiracy. Okay. You go and you drag somebody off of their boat for conspiracy to commit wire fraud? What the hell? Am I the only one that thinks that that is like weird and excessive? And, I'm immediately thinking, oh, well, it's New York. Probably they might just be prosecuting somebody because he's Donald Trump. associated with Donald Trump. Well, then when I hear that they're using excessive measures, like they're going and dragging him off of his boat, now I really think that that's what's going on, you know? Anyways, it's just the whole thing is kind of crazy. Oh, Trump is live with Iraqi Prime Minister Mahdi. Trump does not know people tied to Bannon Project. Yeah, I mean, they've had no relationship with each other. It's a great media story, but it doesn't really affect anything. It's fun to talk about, though.
RJ Wheel says Crockett and Tubbs got him.
I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure that there are guys out there doing shady stuff in the market and aren't being investigated and won't get caught. And then they're going and dragging Bannon off of his boat. Or like this whole thing with, like, here's a great example, Tether. Okay, New York Attorney General is going after them, but like, that's just been sitting in court. Oh, maybe they'll give us the documents and maybe not. Maybe something will happen. Maybe the court lets them off. Maybe somehow they find a way to get off and then they can continue this $1 billion fraud over in Tether. Why aren't they going and pulling the guys from you know, Tether off of their boats? I just can't. It just seems to me, just my opinion, not an expert in this, but it seems to me
Live Action
that
says,
there
I
is
remember a
some.
story when a financier was caught in international waters and they merely asked him to turn himself in when he reaches a port.
It just seems to me that there is some uneven enforcement of the rules, that they treat you differently because of who you are. Seems to me. Martin Shkreli, throw the book at him. But then if you're like, well, I don't know. I don't know why they threw the book at Martin Shkreli, to be honest.
Live Action says, of course.
Other than that, I guess he was making a lot of money from it. I don't know.
PRT1 says, not a fan, but look what they did with Roger Stone. Totally political.
Oh, yeah, totally political. Totally political. 100%. And then they got him because they said that he lied, but
Live Action really says, always been that way.
That whole thing was bullshit. I'm glad that he got pardoned. And then everybody making a big deal out of him getting pardoned. That was some real nonsense, in my opinion. Manafort too, like, that's another one where it's like, well, what Manafort did was wrong, but it was all before any of that, What? Zero Hedge tweet says Tesla 3100 calls expiring tomorrow. People actually wanted Tesla to go to 3100?
Live Action says CNN being there was a joke.
Oh, yeah. No, they gave CNN the heads up. You're right. You're just getting me triggered. Like, I'm sorry if you're a Democrat and you're listening to me rant about this. You probably don't care. But over on the right, every time that we see one of the Trump associates get prosecuted, even if it's what is the word, deserved, like it was in the case with Manafort, is just the way that there is a completely asymmetrical enforcement. If it's a Donald Trump person, they throw every resource that they have at there and make as big of a deal as you possibly fucking can. If it's Hillary Clinton, oh, well, maybe we should look into that, and nothing happens. It's bullshit.
PRT1 says SWAT raid because you ran a stop sign.
It's ridiculous. That's a little, I mean, that's hyperbole, our PRT, but that's for sure what it feels like, Man. Nobody wants to investigate Hillary Clinton's charity? Come on. Or the fact that, she straight up fucking lied to us, like the whole American public, about the emails thing. And then we don't really know what was in those emails.
RJ Wheel says, yeah, CNN reporter out there at 6 a.m.
Oh, well, we don't think that she
Salim L
intended
says,
to
last
do it. We'll
time
let
I
her
checked,
off.
Democrat means dimwit.
It's bullshit. She deserved to be
RJ Wheel
prosecuted.
says in FTON5 of Stonehouse.
It's just not right that she still hasn't been held to account for any of her crimes. And Spot Gamma pointing out that Tesla has a lot of interest up at 2,000 and a lot of price action today, likely driving price. So I got a question for you guys.
Live Action says Dems in my old hometown destroyed it.
Do you think that people are using options to manipulate price, like in Tesla? You come in, you buy the options. It seems like if you do it correctly, you can have a more significant effect on the price than the amount of money that you're putting into it would justify. If that is the case, what is the limit to that? Can you just pump it up forever? Or is there a point at which that blows up in your face? Or do we need to make changes to the way that options work? You know what I mean? Increase the margins on them or something. I don't know. Am I crazy? Okay, so there's the auctions. 10 years still just sitting there and doing nothing. I am seeing the E-mini doing a bunch of weird stuff though. Not sure what that's all about. You know what though? I'm getting distracted. I think that I need to get going. We should talk about the options thing tomorrow because it'll be Friday, and then clearly Tesla wants to go to 2,000. And the E-mini wants to move up higher. Well, anyways. Let's call today a stretch, shall we? How do options affect stock price? Well, so if you buy the calls, then somebody is selling the calls to you. And that person that is selling the call, he doesn't want to be screwed if the price actually ends up going up. So he hedges himself by buying the stock. Right? So he only wants to make money off of the decay of the option. So they hedge like that. And what's happening is a bunch of people are coming in and intentionally buying a ton of calls for it, knowing that all of these market makers are going to have to buy the actual stock to cover them. And so they're like, basically they're saying, why would you actually buy the stock when you can buy the calls and pump it up, times 100. Right. Anyways, lots of big orders here in the E-mini. I wish I could stick around to see what happens here, but it's time to go. So I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay prosperous.